right. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Rich Mellon from Trapping Inc. TV. Tonight's guest is a trap manufacturer and of very high quality traps, the Koro trap line. And this is James Korosil. James, welcome to the podcast.
It's very much a pleasure to be here, Rich.
It's awesome. We were just chatting before we went on and comparing weather. We're both here in Canada. You're near Winnipeg?
Yeah, just about 15 minutes outside of the city, yeah.
Okay. And I was telling you that we've got a dusting of snow here. Nothing serious. It's actually late for us not having snow, but we did freeze up. We've been hitting like minus 12 to minus 18 the last 3-4 nights in a row. So we've got about 2 inches of ice now. You know, that's down to about zero Fahrenheit. So,
Well, you're definitely colder than us. We've not hit the double digits yet, so into the minuses. We're about -7, -8 so
oh,
far. Ice is just starting at the corners of the pond and stuff.
oh well, we were so warm, and I test trapped a couple of muskrats, and they weren't hadn't primed up at all yet. And then all of a sudden, it started getting cool. You know, we were starting to hit that maybe a degree of frost at night and that kind of thing, and then things really accelerated. So I set up 3 lakes. I got out and I set up 3 lakes. I put out a bunch of traps and went to bed feeling great because the forecast was for the next 3 days was for good weather. And I was like, I'm going to clean up. I should be, like 400 or 500 rat pull here. And I get up the next morning and there's a weather warning. We've got this weather warning on my phone saying that by supposedly by 10 o'clock in the morning, we were supposed to be hitting 80 kilometer or 50 mile an hour winds. Well, I'm hooped at that point. Like, I mean, I can't even get out on the lakes or anything with my canoe. So I scrambled and I was done by about 11 o'clock, and the wind never showed up. But I only got like a 7 or 8 hour soak on all of my rat traps, and so I didn't get near as many as I thought. Once again, counting your chickens before you hatch, right?
Yeah, that does happen sometimes for sure. I know it's been pretty windy here for almost a week now. It's almost every day, 40 gusting to 60, 50 gusting to 70, that kind of thing. So, we've had some wind. Most of my muskrat trapping this year so far it's all been actually live cage trapping. Just a bit of a sub contract for Ducks Unlimited. We have some retention ponds in the city of Winnipeg used for water runoff and that. And of course, the cattails are for the natural filtration. But obviously, one of the favorite foods for rats. And so I do some work for the in the city. So it's all live trapping and stuff like that. So it's interesting, but the weather doesn't hurt me as much. So that's nice.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, tell me, do you have hard bottom ponds or soft bottom ponds? Like, can you
They're definitely
when you trap your
they're like
muskrats?
that.
I'm
But
sorry. When you trap your
go
muskrats,
ahead, go ahead.
can you do it in your waders?
Yeah, like most of my rat trapping that I do, I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of history of rat trapping. Just never lived in the areas that, had a lot of rats. So most of my stuff has been actually live trapping, and it's a lot of just going along the banks. But I did some kill trapping last year for Ducks Unlimited as well, and yeah, it's not hard bottom. Believe me, it's suction cup muck, and
Oh,
it's um, I'm able to do it in hip waders, but yeah, it wasn't fun. It was a lot of balance issues for sure. That's trying to walk through that stuff.
oh, we have mud bottoms here. Just it's terrible, and I'm scheduled to go back in to have surgery on my right knee again. And so when you get stuck down in there and you lift up, well, and your knee kind of pulls apart, that's a terrible feeling, and and I
Oh,
don't
tough.
care for it. So I do most of it in the canoe. You just can't get around fast enough otherwise, right? It's funny you
Yeah, no,
talk
for sure.
about doing muskrats in ponds like that, retention ponds. I know somebody who does muskrats at a water treatment plant, and there's all kinds of little flow throughs from one pond to another, and he will put colony traps down in there. And his personal record was 26 in one colony trap. He had to cut the trap open to get them out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that would be awesome to be working like that when those things, yeah, because they're gonna use those funnels, continuously for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it's surprising of how many muskrats are within city limits. You'd be surprised. Like I don't do whole numbers like what you're kind of talking about 300-400 and that, but I did do 146 in a week. So, and we're talking all cage trapping. So I think I'm doing pretty good. So, running about 60, 64, 65 traps. So
That
it's
yeah, that's awesome to be getting that many. And so because you catch them live, then do you have to release them somewhere?
no, actually, the contract is still to, uh,
Ah,
euthanize, but
yeah.
it's yeah, as long as they,
Euthanize.
yeah, as long as they leave alive, everybody's happy, I guess, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the way that animal damage control is going, right? So the saying is what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve, So uh, you know, it's, call it the Walt Disney effect on trapping, right? So, but yeah, so it's definitely it's changing. It's still trapping, but definitely it's a new like a new way, I guess, or a new type of trapping that I think kind of what trapping is going too slowly. Especially as the cities are expanding, there's just going to be so much more animal damage control work now. So.
More and more trappers, that's what they are. Is their animal damage control. That's what keeps them hired, pays the bills. It's astounding. I've got a couple. I've already done several podcasts with ADC trappers, and I've got several more lined up. It's like when I'm the guy that goes out chasing them wild. I'm just about one of a kind pretty soon here.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where, yeah, if you with the fur industry, it does really kind of deter a lot of trappers out there, unfortunately, because there's some of us that don't do it for the money. It's the passion, it's in the blood, and but the thing is if with the reduced number of trappers, the animals they don't stop multiplying, and a lot of animals love to be around people, so it's just one of those things where, yeah, though trapping I think is always going to be around, the animal damage control industry is kind of more the money maker, I guess, if you will.
I always find it amazing that people think something is so cute until it's a pest and it eats their begonias or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I've got a couple stories that I could tell, but yeah, it's no, definitely it's funny how people change when it's happening to them, when the animal's in their attic or whatever, so yeah, it's funny that way.
Hey folks, Rich from Trapping Inc. TV here. And we all have our idea of the perfect morning. You know what I'm talking about. For me, the perfect morning starts with the aroma and flavor of freshly brewed Old Smokes coffee. Studies have shown that just the smell of fresh coffee can boost brain activity. No kidding. Well, that's certainly no secret to me. I can barely talk before that first cup. Just ask Sandy. I'm a dark roast man, and Old Smokes Coffee's darkest roast, Stout Maple, is what gets my day in gear. Extra dark, it's strong, aromatic, and smooth. Gets me revved up for whatever the day throws at me. Old Smokes roast their coffee over wood fires, the old-fashioned way. Wood roasting takes more time, much longer than modern hot air roasting. Slow roasting over wood takes the bitter out of the bean and imparts a heavenly taste and aroma from the wood smoke. Old Smokes makes a roast perfect for each person. There are 5 roasts, from light to extra dark, each roasted over a different wood for a unique flavor. Did you know the darker the roast, the lower the caffeine content? It's true. Caffeine is a volatile oil that evaporates with roasting. The lightest roast has the most caffeine, and the darkest roasts have the most flavor. Right now, you can order from their online store and use our promo code RICH, that's RICH, and get 10% off your entire order. Pretty simple. Just go to www.olesmokescoffee.com, that's OLE smokescoffee.com, and use the promo code RICH. That is promo code RICH for 10% off your entire order. And now let's get to today's show. So you come from a trapping family. Your dad is actually the one who started the line of traps, and we'll get to that in a couple of minutes here. But tell me about your history. What did you start out trapping, and what's your favorite animal to trap?
I probably started well trapping with my dad. I think my biggest memory was uh, I guess going out with him into the Sandylands Provincial Forest, which was east of Winnipeg by about 45 minutes or so. It's basically crown land, so it was not backwoods trapping by any means. He was more of a road trapper, if you will. At that time, it was primarily trapping fisher, fox, coyote. Lynx was closed for the majority of the years in our area, and there was mink and stuff like that. But my fondest memories is I think around 1985. So I was 10 years old at the time, and I caught a small female fisher. I wanted the sets that I made, and I think if I remember correctly, I got about $390 for that fisher, which drove my dad crazy, because he'd definitely at $390 in 1985 was a lot of money, and that was it for me. I was hooked, and I so I started out trapping fisher primarily, and and weasels and stuff like that. And that was kind of what I started doing, and then as years went on, I started liking the challenge more of getting into the canine trapping and stuff, and just it was a challenge, right? Especially with trying to trap coyotes, and it turns out that they learned a lot more from me than I learned from them at the start, or just until I started getting into it, because growing up, we didn't have, obviously, same as everybody else, the internet and social media and stuff. So we were very not poor, but whatever. It was just a lower income family and stuff like that, so I didn't have access to a lot of stuff. My dad would WD-40 his traps every fall. That was not believe waxing or dyeing or any of that kind of stuff. So trying to catch coyotes that were the traps doused in WD-40 was definitely challenging. So as I grew older, and so I started kind of thinking on my own, and getting into my own stuff, and and him being the trap manufacturer, as we'll kind of get into, it was I had the traps that were made by him. So I didn't have access to conibears and a lot of lake holds and stuff like that. I had the ones that were manufactured in my yard, kind of thing. So that's the traps that I grew up with using, and and then now with all the Koro trap stuff going to the States and such, and the different trade shows, I really got into the animal damage control, and had an opportunity to do some training on animal damage control as a general, and then also trying to specialize in coyote trapping. So I've had the pleasure to take Mark June's course up in Texas a few years ago, and then I also was able to do Mark Zager's course in New York State. So,
Yep.
I definitely trying to. I wouldn't consider myself an expert by any means. I'm still learning, but I think I'm. I think I'm doing better than most started. But I still get schooled. You know, especially trying to get that Wiley alpha or whatever. It's becomes very challenging. So that's kind of the thing is for me, and just to not drag it out too long. Just trapping's always been my thing, and I'm still just as excited to check a trap now than I was when I was 10 years old. It truly is my thing. I'm not much of a hunter. I don't. I'll have a gun with me for whatever, but when I'm out trapping, but yeah, definitely trapping's my thing. It's something that's definitely has totally stuck with me for 35 years or whatever, 40, 30 years. I'm not even sure since about the mid 80s anyway. So yeah.
The thing that I always, when people say to me, I'm not the expert, I think that I always have this little thing go off my mind. It says, well, the time you think you're an expert, you're about to take a learning, and just when I think there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to trapping rats, I had something totally new happen to me on this last check. One of the lakes was got hit by freezing rain during the night, and normally a guy, all my traps were just freshly dipped and dyed, and all of they'd all been freshly waxed, and so you think that that's good, right? You've got no problems. The freezing rain's no problem. Well, I can prove to you right now that don't matter how good your wax job or whatever is, it probably took 5 pounds of pressure to push that pan down on a 1.5 Duke, and the jaws would just stay there. They would just stay there. So, like, I mean, I should have caught twice the rats that I that I did catch, because the ones I caught was before the rain come through, and I'd never seen that happen before. You know, and I'm 60.
No, it's yeah, and we get those things. It's very frustrating, right? Because you spend a lot of time and a lot of effort into the trap preparation, the trap setting, and then you have something like that happen to you. You know what, probably will never happen again. you know,
No,
but
but
it's just one of those.
it's just one of those things where it's like, well, okay, that's something new. That's another thing to remember. It's something to keep in your back pocket, and I'd never seen it before. So let's talk about the manufacturing your traps. So I kind of got the feeling that your dad was building traps because that was the way he could end up with traps, or did he have another reason for getting into trap manufacturing?
Uh, he was a very unique individual. Um, I don't know. It's hard for me to say pinpoint exactly what started the bug for building traps. It started before I was born. Um, I think like he he wasn't I guess it was I think it was because he was a big fox trapper, and we weren't allowed to use free hanging snares in non-registered areas. So and he never had a registered trap line, so he was always trapping in crown land and stuff like that. This is the best of my knowledge anyways. So he came up with a what he called the trail trap. um, Now this would be I don't. I'm actually trying to resurrect this, but I'll get into. We can get into that. Um, so basically, this was a trail unbaited trail set, simulated a snare, but it was a side action style, almost a side action guillotine. It was a lot of thought put into it. It had like a ratchet locking system on it, a spring release in case there was an accidental catch. Um, so basically, you found a pinch point in a trail, and you would kind of camouflage this trap into that pinch point. And there is a brass wire trip. So as the fox or coyote is going down the trail, they would hit it with his chest generally, and the side action would it'd be like a side guillotine which traps him in there. So that was his first one, and that's kind of what I grew up on, and that's what I was catching coyotes and fox on as a kid.
Can I ask you, when you say a side guillotine action, so was it jaws or a snare?
It was a metal strike arm. It was a zigzaggedy, so it was like it basically applied pressure points. So it wasn't like it was like jagged, but it wasn't sharp. It was just like there was like breaks done into the strike bar, and yeah, so it would depending on how fast the animal was going down the trail. If he was walking, would generally catch him by the neck. If they were at a trot, they would catch him a little bit further back. And it was the nice thing about it too was you can adjust the height of the brass wire, which would normally allow the rabbits to would run underneath. So it appeared that the rabbits are running the trails, which was actually a little bit of an added bonus for the fox or coyote coming on the trail after that.
So it was a restraining then? It wasn't a killing?
No, no, it was a killing. It's a
Okay.
killing trap. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That sounds
Um, you,
fascinating.
you you'll probably see you'll probably see it next year maybe. I'm thinking about doing some different sizes of it for actually getting it for beaver and that, like a 12 by 12 or ish kind of a thing because it'd be perfect for doing it for like a for example like a culvert and that. You don't need that rotating jaw space. It's basically you can have it almost butted up against a structure,
Oh,
be it the
yeah.
outside of a culvert or what have you,
Right.
and yeah, like so, and I was gonna be actually looking at if I can once I get this going on, like I said, it's a bit of a it'll be a bit yet, but something like a or talk to the guys over from Hagues or something like that, and for like a bracket or something like that, run it. I think that would be a pretty cool setup for guys that do a lot of water trapping. The smaller version for muskrats and and stuff like that, and so but yeah, so that was his first trap that he made, and that was probably in the later '70s. Um,
That
and
was
then
like I mean, that was way off of the playbook, man. Like there was nothing like that around, you
well,
know?
the funniest thing is he sent it in to the Fur Institute way back when for testing. I don't even know how many years it went by where they apparently lost the traps, and he sent new ones. Apparently the traps were lost again, and he finally got an answer many years later, and they said they don't that they didn't know how to test it. So you know yeah, it was way beyond its time, and that's one of the things that that I kind of want to bring back just because my dad passed just a little over a year ago. So it's one of those just more of a tribute kind of thing. If anything, I just want to bring it back, and because it is like that's what I grew up using. I know it works. I know it works well.
Oh, you used a lot of them,
But
did you?
yeah, yeah, it wasn't a lot, but yeah, we did use them, and it was one of those things where uh, fearful of where to use them because we're always nervous about hunters and stuff like that too. I guess there wouldn't be much different between that and a ram, like a ram power snare. They're both equally not hunter friendly if something should happen. So,
Yeah.
um, the things that we want to get that I want to bring back, and I think I'm just sorry, I just want to, I'm having maybe some issues with my internet here. Just is are we you can still hear me good?
Yep. Yeah, it ironed out.
Okay, okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so getting into the second style trap is like we have the ones that are the Koro #1 and #2. I'm not sure you're kind of familiar with those. I think, but he started off with a 10 by 10, what we would call the #3 now that it's going to be back into production this fall here, and I guess a little more popular traps and stuff like that, primarily for Fisher, and that is one of the things that he was getting into. Um, and
So describe
the
for
smaller size.
everybody Describe for everybody how your trap works, what you're talking about here, because it's a body grip trap is what it is, and it's a killing trap. I've used them. I've used, I think, the number one and the
Okay.
number two. I don't think I've
Yeah.
had the big 10 inch, but describe how this works.
Like just basically like as far as how we go about setting them and such,
Well,
or
you've basically got one this frame that has I don't know, for lack of anything
well,
else, it's kind of like the killing bar on a mousetrap, right?
yeah, in a sense, it's still a body gripping trap, very much the same as a conibear in a sense where it grasps them the same and the springs are the same. But yeah, so generally it's almost a combination between a leg hold and a body grip. Um, so yeah, it sets up uh, very much the same as a like a 90-degree clam shell, if you will, I guess.
Yep.
With the top bar being what you I guess you would kind of consider the strike arm coming down on them once the pan is depressed, and yeah, and, so basically it's I guess the only main difference is with our trap is you don't have 50% of your power going one way and 50% of your power in the spring going the other way. It's kind of you're kind of backed off, and you have when the spring opens, excuse me, to close, we got the full force of the spring, pushing that strike arm closed for what we consider a pretty fast closing trap in that, and it it's I wouldn't say it's got any more clamping force or anything like that than a rotating body grip, but it's just the force is directed in one direction. I guess the more so the biggest plus for that is for the trapper himself. If there's an accidental catch, it's one of the things that you can do is you can fairly easily get out of one, versus a rotating body grip. As anybody who's ever caught themselves in the bush trying to compress a spring with one hand, it's not a lot of fun. You you tend to hear stories of people driving to the nearest house to try to get the trap off their hands or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about it, I never thought about that. I never thought about the fact that with the rotating body grip that you do have, you've got two of them, you're moving two jaws, right? Whereas with yours is just
yeah,
that single jaw. And I know the way I've used the one and two is mount them on a tree, so they're straight up and down, and the killing bar is up above, and when the pan is trapped, well, down it comes, right? And it's not
yeah,
getting launched off the tree or away from the tree like a rotating body grip. Those springs, if they're up tight in the back of the box, I mean, she shoots out of there a heck of a speed,
yeah.
and that also removes some of the jaw speed, because that spring is pushing the whole trap away, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it's not necessarily a disadvantage, but it does definitely slow it down a little bit. If there's any kind of resistance, right? That's the thing. So, because for the longest time, growing up, and then for the longest time, we always used bait boxes with the Coral number one and number two, or we'd make like a type of a cubby set if we went on the ground sometimes with our larger number threes, similar to what you guys would do for like a Wolverine set, But it wasn't until I had the pleasure of spending some time with a friend of mine now by the name of Dave O'Farrell. He runs Grizzly Creek Lodge out of the Yukon, and he was really interested in my wolf trap, and I was really interested on getting out there and doing some testing, and so I shipped him down a bunch of traps, and I'll be honest, I don't want to take the credit for the new design of the trigger, not of the new design of the trigger, but of how they're being used now. It was a lot to do with Dave, and when you're in the middle of nowhere, as I'm sure you've been, there's not a lot to do except think and talk, and so I was there for 10 days, and unfortunately the wolves weren't around due to the weather, so we really focused on coming up with the proper uh, trigger trigger system for the Coral number 1 and 2 for martin, and that was our main focus. It turned out it was a really good martin year. There was martin everywhere, and we started off with bait boxes on like a horizontal run, and then a little bit of rain came, and then we had some freeze ups. We had martin go through the traps and say, okay, this is not going to work in these kind of climates. So we started hanging the bait box from a tree and everything else, and then Dave said to me, like, why don't we just get rid of the bait box? And then I'm like, well, yeah, sure, kind of thing. And we didn't really have much for tools, so we were wiring beaver meat to the pan, and then the next thing you know, it's yeah, we kind of came up with a system, and what we really found that was key, that was that little piece of well, I mean, it's basswood, but a little piece of plywood on the pan, and for whatever reason, it seemed to help um, um, take away the misses. So we slowly each day we kind of migrated to what we have now, but from starting from the bait box to eliminate the bait box to wiring bait to the pan on a steel pan, and yet we, for whatever reason, we actually had a miss or two, um, and then we added a piece of wood on the pan, and for whatever reason I still keep getting back with Dave, and he's basically telling me that he's not having any kind of misses with just adding that little piece of plywood. And unfortunately I don't have as much time as I'd like to do, as much research as I'd like, as far as getting video cams and stuff like that, and I got to do a lot more of that kind of stuff, but in theory, I think they're grabbing onto that with their nails and trying to tug at the bait, and that's, onto the pan area there, and that's where that's where we're having, very good success with that, because martin, they're very aggressive when it comes to eating. They're going to tug at that thing and work at that bait until it's free. So they're not going to be shy about that. So it seemed to really have just seem to work. It's just one of those things where, I got to give a lot of credit to Dave, because, it was a lot to do with him on this idea.
That's interesting that putting a piece of plywood on the metal pan would up your catch rate. I wonder I wonder what's going on there. Is it because it adds a little bit of mass and actually your trigger is lighter? Because, or is it just the
I
fact that they that it's not metal and so it's not foreign to them. They brace their feet on that wood and away they go and it's done.
I I think so. At least when it comes to martin, I can't really say for sure when you get into a bigger species, but I think, yeah, there's that level of comfort. And I know any animal is going to prefer to put their feet on wood versus metal. That and
Yeah.
and that's from animal damage control too. If it comes to squirrels or what have you, you'll still catch them, the majority of them, but you're trying to eliminate the misses, and yeah, it's so whatever reason, and yeah, I probably should have some video cameras up that, and I'm just not very good in that kind of in that stuff. It's not really my strength. But
Well,
yeah,
I can tell you as someone who has lots of video cameras up and never gets video, you're maybe just saving yourself a bunch of time that I waste. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I on average I have 40 video cameras in the bush every year, and what I've got
oh
is the
wow,
back end of a lynx walking away, or I do not have not found a brand that's worth packing home, and I've spent a lot of money on a pile of them. So, and then people send me video. It's like, how did that work? I've got a bunch of video cams out on my home quarter right now. It's hunting season, and we have moose, deer, and elk all over the place. And and every one of the cameras, an animal walks up to it, and then they lick it, they chew on it, and everything else. So I know that the predators know they're there as well. And to me, it's almost like, I've taken and put cameras on a box that year over year, this box or this set will catch 4 or 5 marten every year. I put a camera on it, not catch a marten the whole year. And it's like, what? So I don't know whether it's different with the predators or what it is, but man, I'm cursed when it comes to that.
Hey, Rich here. Sandy and I are pleased at the rapid growth of our exclusive community, Trapping Inc. at locals.com. We created the community to connect more closely with our fans, friends, and supporters without the interference and censorship of social media companies. Because this community is subscriber exclusive, there is no censored photos, shadow banning, and deplatforming as happens on Twitter and Facebook. Trolls are non-existent, as not a one will spend a nickel and put their money where their mouth is to protest on a paid site. You know it. We are steadily moving all Trapping Inc. YouTube videos and podcasts as quickly as time and bandwidth allow. We're tickled and surprised to see how large of library we must move. As well, we are sharing articles on trapping and guns and shooting. Our new TV series, Married to the Hunt, videos are here too. Hours and hours of never before released to the internet hunting and fishing from around the world. TrappingInc.locals.com will be the exclusive home of all Trapping Inc. content from the past and into the future. What else is there to do? Well, there's a forum for everyone to post pictures on and interact. You can message us directly on TrappingInc.locals.com, as well as interact with all the other subscribers. These are all people with common interests. Get in here. This whole venture is about taking the Trapping Inc. TV community to the next level, building a community of shared interest and interacting with all of our friends. Who knows where we can go from here? Just go to locals.com and sign up for a free account. Then search for Trapping Inc. and subscribe for $5 a month. That's it. Go to locals.com to open a free account and then subscribe for $5 a month to Trapping Inc. Help us spread the truth about a way of life and the responsible, ethical management of the wild resources. TrappingInc.locals.com. Now back to the show.
Yeah, like when I was up in the Yukon, we tried a little bit, and the same thing. Of course, the set that I had the camera at didn't catch anything, and we tried kind of doing a trap off thingamajigger with having a conibear right beside a Koro, and there was a marten in each of them the next day, kind of thing. So like it was.
But
like,
which one caught first?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I know. It was the chicken or the egg there, right? So
Yeah.
That was my attempt, and but obviously I know it's the more you use them, they will be beneficial. And I plan on actually getting out this winter because we just launched our new website for coral traps, and I want to add a bunch of how to set, how to use videos on there. I want to get a lot better with that, and hopefully with that and with a little more videos and social media, we'll get a little more out there kind of thing, where people are, it's growing. It's a tough battle.
Well, and it's so funny because we're really going through a clash of culture here, because trappers are not technically minded, or not usually technically minded, and yet it's a very technical affair. I mean, it's very, very technical discipline. So I'm now working on a whole bunch of YouTube videos with different traps. Like even to sit down and show the difference between a dog on a trap and a dogless trap. And people go, oh, that's what it is. It's stuff that we take for granted. It's the stuff that I get in trouble over all the time, because I go up and I set a trap and walk away, and the guy says, and then I'll get emails now, you didn't take the safeties off. I know I took the safeties off because I don't even pay any attention anymore. It's all muscle memory. My hands do it and away I go. But then, I've had cameramen out with me, and I go do something. He says, wait a minute, wait a minute, what did you just do? You know? And so you slow it down, you start explaining it, and you realize that you're doing all this stuff that people really want to know the explanation of, and you're just doing it so fast because it's just normal part of what you do. We're like I said, we're doing a whole bunch more work now with getting YouTube videos and that together on traps, on different kinds of traps, different ways to set, what's a night latch, all that kind of stuff. That nobody seems to cover, right? And it's one of the weaknesses. Yes.
Well, no, yeah, and I agree. And and general education, even if it's courses and stuff, are very, also very good and beneficial for young trappers and stuff, so they can actually get a little bit of hands-on. And that's something I'm not using this advertiser or nothing like that, but it's something I want to do in the future. Is I want to give back and start trying to teach this stuff, because yeah, it's a lot of this that we've grew up with this for so long and been doing this. It's second nature, and we don't realize that it's yeah, we take it for granted in a sense, because it's a lot of knowledge that we know, and when it comes to trapping and stuff like that, and it's amazing how lack of a better term, clueless people are about trapping. They don't really understand the concept of it or the tools we use. You
Oh,
know,
I know. 'Cause easily 80 or 85% of our fans don't trap, but they're just fascinated with the life. I'm sure that we have every trapper that has a TV or an internet connection. We are connected to them. Like, I mean, the other 20 or 25% of our fans are all trappers. In the beginning, the first thing that happened was people were upset with us because now we were telling all the secrets. And I really couldn't understand this because where we are here in Alberta, I have a registered trap line. Nobody else gets to trap on it but me. So I can tell you everything and anything about how I trap and where I trap and what I use and everything else, because you're never going to trap my trap line and I'm never going to trap on yours. And now we've kind of overcome that. Now people are moved beyond, and they're interested in the education side of it. And we are getting a lot of people that are very interested in how things are done, and especially the argument that's happening right now when it comes to the restraining, the new laws on the restraining footholds and that, and the offset trap. And people have this idea that because you have that gap between the jaws of the offset trap, that they're going to lose a toe hold or whatever on a coyote. And no, you don't. What they don't realize is that those springs actually come up higher, and so it's got an even better grip on the animal, right? But it's to try and explain that to people. Everybody thinks that those jaws should be able to close right tight together, and it's all education, right?
well, no, and that's exactly it. And you know, we've all evolved a lot from 20 years ago or what. So the stuff that we do with the way that we think, and it's definitely we're improving, and the traps too. It's um, there's a lot of good traps out there nowadays, and yeah, with the offsets, the rubber padded and all that kind of stuff. It's all good stuff for sure.
So 1 and 2 and 3 were the next traps. What was the trap after that?
The next traps after that was probably our rodents line. So it was probably started off with, can't remember which size. He messed around with a few different sizes, but of most people who would be listening or know of Koro would know of the Koro rodent. It's about roughly 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch, primarily designed for weasels, and it is a certified trap for weasels. Probably more known on squirrels. A lot of animal damage control guys are using them on squirrels. Um, and then we have the larger version of that, which we call just the large rodent, roughly about a 4.5 inch by 5 inch. Um, and that's primarily used for, it was made for muskrats. My father used to trap muskrats with that a lot. Never really took off for muskrats, just because of costs, I think. more so that way. And then it's kind of been used more so for gray squirrels. So again, animal damage control really took off. We have some businesses using a lot of them, catching north of 1,000 gray squirrels a year. So they've been really doing well that way. Some guys, in the states where they don't have the legalities, are some of our traps are getting used for other species, which might not be used down here. In the state of Washington right now, the coral rodent is actually legal for use, which is the only real trap that's legal for use versus your snap traps kind of thing, your mouse traps and your Victor rat traps. And we have guys using them on spotted skunks, as well as other species they probably shouldn't be trapping with them. I told them not to advertise it if they want to keep the rodent legal in their state. Stop putting that stuff on social media. But
Actually,
yeah, so
I had a guy contact me, and it's either Washington or Oregon or whatever, but that is the only trap that's legal for marten,
is
and it's your large rodent. And
actually small rodents.
okay, well, anyway, because he discussed with me, we discussed on how he'd build a box for it and that kind of stuff, and as you talked about it, I remember this was a year or two ago, which is an
Yeah,
eternity in my
it's
world.
been they actually had a legal team involved with this. They've been trying hard to get the coral rodent actually certified there and for use, not certified, but legal. Sorry, and Fish and Game has been resistant on anything else besides a rat trap or a mouse trap. So I actually had to put coral rat trap on the pan for them to get it to bypass there, and then so um, all the little loops that you can jump through to get something, and then
Because they can read? I
um,
don't know.
and it's no different than a mouse trap or a rat trap. They are an impact killing trap. They don't have the clamping force. They kill off velocity, and that's what they're designed to do. So realistically, there's no difference. There's no difference between that versus that it has a metal frame versus a plastic or a wood one.
you
So.
you just changed the trigger on them, didn't you?
Yeah, we have a new system, and I've been trying to figure out something for a long time, and we've failed many times over. Um, there was a couple of reasons why. We had some concerns that the dog, because it wraps over top of the strike arm, when the trap fires, that pushes that dog up with extreme velocity, and it has the potential of kicking out a squirrel or weasel or whatever species that you're going after. I think there's some truth to it for sure. I think I use them all the time, and I use them maybe a little bit different. I have boxes made for mine that force them in sideways, and I generally use all my coral rodents sideways instead of dead on, anyways. And I always have them try to enter through the side that has the most openness, and so the dog's on the far side of the trap, in a sense. So that's just the way I've always used them. Um, but anyways, getting back to the trigger system, so that, and the other thing was, people are always nervous setting the trap because it's a real finger basher.
Yeah.
So I've had guys come up to me in trade shows and just show me their thumb. They just walk up to me with their thumb out, and I know, oh yeah, okay, they've been playing with the rodent trap.
Yeah.
So it made a lot of people nervous, and I figured, well, hey, um, there's little bits and pieces of all my traps that I want to make little improvements on, and people want, like, trappers are anybody. They want, you know, they don't want to sit there and fight with something. They want to have it set almost by itself, you know, and make it easy that way, you know, and so that's what we came up with. It's been working quite well. There is a little bit of adjustment on there. It's hard to, you know, when we're not a very high tech trap manufacturing company, and we're working with local laser cutting places. That there's a little bit of play, so somebody might have to, you know, drag a file on the trap to either make it a little more sensitive or make it a little less sensitive. But all in all, they've been working really well.
Okay. And so then the wolf trap.
All right.
Was that the next
Yeah,
one?
we've had a couple. Yeah, well, it would be like the ways that we made it. Yeah, because we've been asked to, we've been making the Koro live beaver trap, but that's not our design. We got approached that in the early 2000s to make that, just because it wasn't available. So we've been making that for, well, ever since. So it's been quite a few years. There's that trap. We got asked to make the Aldridge grizzly bear throw spring. So we approached that a couple of years back already, and I never just had an opportunity to get around to it in the last year or so. So we've been making them and selling them now, because for the Aldridge bear snare, there wasn't a lot of like heavy duty springs available. There was some lighter grade springs available in some places, so we got asked to make that. So we was somewhat, you know, the people that we talked with, some improvements. So it opens up a little wider, a little heavier diameter spring on there. So we've been doing that now too. And and then the wolf trap would be there too, would be next.
How did it come about?
Which So it was one of the things, once we started going to different shows throughout the U.S. and Canada. Um, you know, we talked to different people about different items and stuff like that, and you know, and then so I was approached um, with a design that was very similar to the Alaskan #9 from Fairbanks, I believe. They're
Yep.
getting made up in there. Um, and At the time, there was the one that I was kind of approached with had a dog system on there, because one of the biggest concerns from the #9 was, you know, the chewed up dogs all the time. And then there was also another issue. It was side anchored. Um, and it wasn't offset or anything like that. So there was you know, it was a really good trap. It was just, you know, us in Canada here, we're moving forward with the trap standards. So there was, you know, substantial changes that would need to get made in order to improve that. And you know, for two reasons that I really wanted to do this was, one was my love for canine trapping, um, and the other was, you know, having a good wolf trap, what I think would kind of put Koro traps on the map, in a sense, where we, you know, always kind of struggle to get a voice anywhere. So that was one of the things. So we kind of had a rough design of one, and kind of basically, you know, improved it on that. So what can we do to, you know, make it stronger in the right areas, keep the weight down? You know, obviously I talked with, you know, quite a few people on, you know, what is a wolf trap that we want to see, you know, and you know, what do you want to use, what kind of climates, you know, what kind of, because, you know, my climate in Manitoba is much different than yours, and from the Yukon or to Alaska, and you know, we didn't have a lot of the melt, the snow, and then the warm and the freeze. So you need a trap that's going to come out of a lot of snow, you know, kind of crustacean, stuff like that. So these are all the things that we took under account. We've always been very good at making springs, so that was a pretty easy fix. Um, and then some of the other, you know, materials. Um, we weren't, necessarily. I had to do some research on what kind of a steel material. A lot of from some of the I've never been a big wolf trapper, but I've caught some wolves and over the years, and with some of the traps that were caught, they got one catch and we got jaws bent or this is bent, so it was one of those things where wolves put traps through a lot of abuse, so you need something that's going to be stout. So we sat down and we came up with a few things. Like for example, the jaws that we make the trap out of. It's called Hardux, which is a high tensile steel. I do believe they're used on grater blades, so they're made for wear primarily. It's not a metal that you can just drill through easily. You need, it's very tensile. In order to roll the springs, to roll the jaws, it's quite the process. It's crazy hard steel. We did actually at start we run Hardux laminates with it too, which we soon decided that was foolish because you got all the strength from the jaw already, and then just by using mild laminates. Um, and then as far as the base goes and that, without putting too many pieces together and trying to beef it up so it's going to be strong enough, we decided to go with a strengthening brakes in the base. um, and that I think that we could probably still do. It still wants to frown a little bit over time, so that's one of the things that we need to maybe look at and try to improve still a little more on what may be a bit of a weaker spot. um, we tried to reduce the amount of on the setting levers. Um, Came up to a conclusion right away is that we feel that it's very important that there's levers versus just the springs. Depending on the type of spring steel, I know spring steel fairly well, and it's a lot more brittle than people understand. Um, so there's a lot of broken springs that happen to some of the brands of traps out on the market um, over time. So I think I just thought it was really important to have protective levers. And what we tried to do is cut them as open as possible to create the least amount of resistance coming up. But we still felt it was very, important to have those on there. And obviously, we did the center base, the center anchor, on the base. Um, all of our hardware. One of the things that I've seen on some of the traps in the past is um, either extremely large bolts that add unnecessary weight, or very small bolts that are welded or whatever. So I decided to go with a grade 8 bolt and silver locking nuts, which is I think important because the majority of wolf traps get dyed, so they get boiled. And if you have a nylon locking nut, well, that's gonna eat up if you're boiling it out. It's gonna really damage the nylon. So going with an aircraft nut, I thought was the way to go with that. Um, and that so we have quite a bit of thought into it. Um, I still want to improve the trip system. I want to come up with a type of a night latch ish kind of a system, a bit of a drop down, something that more of a visual indicator for the trapper, I guess, if anything, but to limit the travel on the pan as well. Even though you can kind of adjust that right now with the current trap, but it's nice to have something um, that gives you a nice visual to know that you're armed. The safety's off and it's ready to go. And I think that's it's just I think it's more to do for the trapper than it is to do for the trap in a sense. But it's different if it's a coyote versus a wolf. Uh, I always use the analogy that a coyote is kind of like Muhammad Ali. and the wolf was like Joe Frazier or George Foreman. One's going to be stepping at 15 pounds, the other one's stepping at 3 pounds, and they're so light on their feet, coyotes. But generally, when a wolf is stepping down, more times than not, and again, I'm not the expert when it comes to wolf trapping, but they're generally fairly committed when they're stepping down. You don't want a ton of travel by any means, but it's not quite as of an instant trigger that you need for a coyote. That's my opinion, anyways.
I got to tell you that your wolf trap is easily the best value on the market. You have it's beefy, it's solid. I've never distorted one. I was surprised to hear you say that you get some of them occasionally smile a bit, but I've never distorted one. I have had like number three bridgers that had a lynx in them, and the wolves come along and grab the lynx, and they tear the lynx apart, they drag them away and all that, and they bend that bottom plate, that base plate on that number three bridger just like that, and the jaws are hanging open, and it's ruined. The trap is ruined, and that just doesn't happen with your trap. Like, I mean, I understand your trap's a lot bigger, different class than a number three bridger, but like a number three four spring rubber jawed Victor.
Yeah.
It's classified as a wolf trap. Like, I mean, I look
Yeah,
at it and it's like, are you kidding me? You know, it it,
that's
it,
bizarre.
it weighs like just a few ounces, and it's this tiny little thing, and it's like, how did that qualify as a wolf trap? Like, I mean, that kind of thing right there, it makes me question all of FIC's trap testing and everything else. I mean, we have standards like maximum jaw spread. Is it inside or outside? It's 9 inches. Is it inside or outside of the jaw?
It would be 8.5 by 9. 8.5 by 9 should be inside diameter, I do believe.
Okay, we have that. They have to be center hinged or center swiveled, right? So that when the animal's pulling it's pulling straight on his paw. It's not off on the one end, so that he's sliding his paw or anything else. We have to have a minimum amount of offset. A thickness of the jaws, all of this stuff. I mean, the trap testing today is almost like it's almost redundant. I mean, we know what makes a proven trap. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, yeah. I I don't know how much of my opinion I should share, to be honest. Uh,
don't don't get yourself in trouble. I'm just expressing my
yeah,
opinion, and I can
yeah.
do that.
And it's just when it's kind of started, when it really kind of discouraged me, or kind of started to putting a bit of a taint in my mouth, was when, especially when all the Martin stuff went through, and they certified all the stuff for Martin, and then there was all these other traps that got certified for weasel. Well, you know, then every set's a weasel trap, and or set for a weasel, right? It's one of those things where, and so there's that aspect, and then you got the number three four coil Victor for wolf, and you hear those stories where, yeah, I caught a wolf on a number 1.5 and it held it and all this kind of stuff, and you know what, that may happen once in a while. um, I'd be blown away if they. I'd like to see the 20 wolves or 20 some wolves they caught with that Victor number three. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the pile of steel that's
Yeah.
shredded, probably. But the biggest thing that people don't understand, and possibly too with the FIC, it's not necessarily sometimes. Um, of what the kind of a force you need to hold the animal. It's the force that you need, that needs to come up out of the ground or out of the snow, and you get other traps in the market that are even a little bigger than the Victor number three. If you get that little bit of a crustacean or whatever, there's just too much delay, and a lot of times these traps freeze, they won't even fire. And that's the thing, there's either too many moving pieces on the trap, or it's just not strong enough to come out of the ground. And the biggest thing, especially when it comes to stuff like wolf trapping, is you got to keep it simple. You can't really have much going on, and you need enough power to come out. That's
And
that's the
and
biggest thing.
another thing, here in the north where we get really cold, uh, I don't agree with rubber jaws. Like I don't think that they do the job. They are so cold and so hard it might as well be steel. I think that if the whole idea is to with the new restraining traps is to allow blood flow into the paw and all that so that it doesn't freeze, that the only way to go is offset because the rubber jaws are just get way too hard in the cold.
I totally 100% agree with you. And there's other trappers that would be more than happy to give their opinion on that as well. There's a lot more damage done with a rubber jaw than there is with an offset jaw. And yeah, it's that what I kind of said before. It's that Walt Disney fielding effect.
Yeah.
If people see a rubber jaw, and it's not the trappers, it's the people that don't know anything about trapping. If you tell them it's got a rubber jaw, it doesn't matter what it is. Oh, it's better. It's good. And that's kind of what that has to do with it. I'm not a I'm not a veterinarian. I didn't see all the results on all the testing done on the traps to see the damage and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's got just as much to do with how is the trap anchored? Does it have a shock resistance? Are you using drags? Are you using anchors? And that's a lot to do with this trap testing too. It's a lot to do with the
Absolutely, because
trapper.
you turn around and like the killing traps, okay? Whether the conibear, the Belial, your trap, whatever. I mean, the trap doesn't do anything other than close and it puts enough pressure on and it kills, right? There's very few variables involved there, very few. And really, you can make the trap do the job so much better by making sure the animal can only get in there one way, so it presents itself properly for the trap to do its job. When it comes to a restraining trap, you got a whole bunch more variables, and a couple of them. Number one, they're just being restrained; they're not being killed, so they're going to be alive in there for 24 hours or 48 hours or 72, however long your trap check laws are. So then things like swivels become important. I won't put any less than three swivels on a wolf trap. One on the trap, one in the midpoint in the chain, and one just on the chain just before I anchor it. Whether or not it's on a drag, that makes a big difference. It's got to have a shock absorber, especially if you're ground anchoring. Those things are all really important, and they're not really. They affect how the trap gets performs, and yet it's not the trap, right? Like I mean, it's one of those silly variables, and so I've had some discussions with them, and I says, well, what do you mean you don't control this stuff? Like it's not very fair. So I mean, if they're gonna just throw that trap out for testing and not control all these other variables, why not just look on it on the computer profile and decide whether it passes or not? I mean, really, that's what it's just as effective.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, believe me, I've had my fair share of conversations as well, and it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating, you know. Um, and it's just yeah, it's just the politics. You have to deal with it, unfortunately.
So what's next then? Is there something new on the horizon for Koro traps?
Um, well, nothing that really pertains to the trapping world so much, but we just released our new pocket gopher trap and a mole trap, which is the mole trap is the excellent for striped back gophers and chipmunks and that kind of size as well. So that was just released. Wildlife Control Supplies in East Granby, Connecticut are the first ones that have each of those. So that's kind of more so kind of pertaining to the animal damage control, but Also to everybody, people get pocket gophers and stuff. I'm sure you got them up your way too.
No,
And
we're
oh,
too
you
far
don't, eh?
north. We're too far north.
Oh, you're too far north. Okay. But so that was just released. We are starting a little bit of getting into putting out a dogless coyote trap in Canada because there is no certified dogless coyote trap. Um, so I've been approached by a few people to come up with one. Um,
Well, you did kind of
so
go
that's
into
kind of,
the you did kind of go into it in a very unusual way with starting with the wolf trap first. Just about everybody when they make footholds and that they start with a coyote or fox size and then work their way up to the bigger. Well, you got the big dog out of the way.
well, I am Ukrainian, so I go backwards, pretty much everything. Yeah. So yeah, it was just one of those things where people were really wanting a dogless coyote trap, and I know everyone's going to say another. All we need is another coyote trap on the market, kind of thing. But right now, currently, I don't know. As far as I know, in Canada, I don't think the MB 650 is certified, but that's not a very desirable trigger system by a lot. I don't want to say anything negative, but it just, unfortunately, it's a great trap. But a lot of people kind of get deterred from the trigger system. So something simpler, something simple with like a dogless version of that. So it's kind of looking around, and I'm not copying anything, but somewhat similar to the size of an MB 650 and the trigger system of a Jake trap from the JC O'Connor, something similar to that
Well,
is
as a
what I
trap
was.
builder, tell me what the differences is between the type of jaw that you make and a cast jaw, and what are the reasons for it?
Um, well, the cast jaw is generally is done in a mold, so they'll get it done probably overseas somewhere, I would imagine, and it's probably a lot to do with volume, and it's you don't have any edges or anything on there. You have the mold design, so it's pretty much it's going to come out perfect every time. You don't have to file, you don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury of being able to produce that many, so we're getting stuff cut on lasers. We've messed around with some different stuff to um, um, come up with rounded jaws and with a little bit of machining and stuff like that. And it's very time consuming and expensive, which creates the other problem is then if there's too much money, no one's going to want to buy your trap. It's hard enough to compete in the market as it is, being a manufacturer in Canada or North America for that matter. Versus getting stuff made that's done overseas and that. So it's we got to try to be able to keep the cost down, but somewhat competitive. More people are having a less of an issue spending a little more money if the product proves itself. That's still a struggle for everybody. People want to make 10 trips to the dollar store versus going out and buying something once. And that's just
But
that's everybody's nature.
you make a great
But
point though, the fact that you're made in Canada, made in North America, and it is a quality product. Like I said, I understand business and margins and all that, but your wolf trap is the best buy in wolf traps out there. The best
well, yeah,
value and it doesn't break the bank, and it is a great trap.
well, we're trying hard to keep the prices down. Like I said, it's not easy because we're just like everything else. We got inflation and stuff like that. But we're being that being that we're smaller. We don't have a ton of overhead yet. We're not like some of these other trap manufacturing companies. Um, but yeah, it's just as we get hopefully as we get bigger, and then we'll and be able to improve, and then even though cost will go up, volume will hopefully go up, and then we can still be you still want to be competitive throughout the market. That's what I've been trying to do, and maybe there's not a lot of profit by the end of the day, but I'm just happy to do this. It's just one of those things where it's not always about the money and that. So,
Well, we have rattled on for over an hour here now, James. And I want to thank you for spending the time with us. Let everybody know how they can find you and Koro Traps. What's your website?
all right. So my website is just www.korotraps.com. Just recently launched. Uh, so there is going to be a bunch of videos added. I'll be working on that this fall and this winter once things slow down a little bit. And you can definitely always shoot me an email at james@korotraps.com as well. That's probably the best way to
And
get a hold of
Koro
me.
is spelt with a K.
Koro. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Traps. Koro traps. You bet.
Well, I want to thank you, and I hope everybody enjoyed this chat. We will get it up here in sometime this week, and maybe we'll see you all down the line.